I see you, bro. I see you.
But he sits down to work on something, ends up on the couch eating cookies and watching garbage TV until he falls asleep.
And
Look,
when we say
stop
eating
looking
cookies,
in my windows, bitch.
Yeah. When we say eating cookies, we mean the sleeve. He ain't going through the whole like if you've ever been in that mode where you were just cookie to mouth.
You don't even notice that Oreo's gone until you are out.
You aren't tasting them. You're not registering them. You're not registering what you're watching on the TV. It's trance from start to finish. Like, it is the zen that monks spend like weeks fasting on mountaintops to obtain. Hello, and welcome to Judgmental Horror Junkies. I am your host, Reno Dino Valentino, head doctor of the Asylum for the Insane, and with me as always is Cecilia Rose, the thorniest flower on the cemetery gate.
Oh, I like that one.
Thank you. And today we are talking about a Cecilia pick, which means it is only tangentially a horror movie.
I like the true horrors of life, the horrors of being known and seen by your parents.
Oh yeah, this one. Honestly, this was way scarier than Gremlins. Not even close. Yes, and
Gremlins is real cute though.
I love Gremlins. Hey, top 3 horror movies of all time.
Of course,
Gremlins is definitely. I can't put them in an order. If I had to, it'd probably be Jacob's Ladder, Gremlins, Into the Mouth of Madness. But those 3 in changing orders depending on what day of the week it is.
How your mood varies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And 2 out of 3 have been covered. We've got 1 left.
Okay.
But what are we talking about this month, Cecilia?
All of Us Strangers.
Yes. I don't know. Is there a comma after us? Or is it just like...
It's All of Us Strangers.
All of Us
There's
Strangers.
No comma.
Yeah.
No comma.
Like you're at a flea market and that's what they're selling. It's like, hey, we got all of us strangers here. You got strangers over there. You got strangers over there. Buy 2 strangers, get a stranger free.
I mean...
Yes, exactly. That's what I felt when I watched this movie. Yeah. What is this, 2022, 2021?
It doesn't seem to have an actual year on it, which is probably
spooky.
One of the more discombobulating, because you end up swinging back and forth between like the now and the flashbacks, and it's very
disjointing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing that other people have complained about when they read comic books.
Other people
have complained about when they read comic books. And you keep jumping back and forth. It's a
it does, but this one I feel the cues seemed very clear. Like at no point was I like, is this happening right now? Because number one, our main character Adam was kind enough to always put on children's pajamas whenever he did a flashback, which made it so much easier for me to keep track of what was going on.
So, for IMDb's summary of this movie...
Give us that sum.
A screenwriter drawn to his childhood home enters into a fledgling relationship with his downstairs neighbor while discovering a mysterious new way to heal from losing his parents 30 years ago.
Mysterious. Yeah, that's a nice way to say it.
Yeah.
Heal, also.
One could argue maybe just moves from one obsession to a different obsession.
Just changing the name of that pain. Like, healing may be a strong term.
Healing may be a hopeful wish.
Yeah. Now, as far as cast, it's a short list. We only really have 4 characters in this this sorrowful play that we are discussing.
Yeah.
And I recognize the guy that plays Adam from Moriarty on Sherlock.
My favorite Moriarty, well, except for maybe the Moriarty off of Sherlock Holmes, the anime.
Moriarty the Patriot? You mean? That one. I know that fella.
Andrew Scott is our main character, Adam.
Yeah, Andrew Scott's great. I like him in
Just
these 2 things that I've seen him in.
So I haven't actually watched the whole show yet, but my TikTok algorithm really does know who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And he played in Fleabag as the hot priest.
Okay.
And every scene I have seen him in from TikTok has been just gold.
Been choice.
So good.
I don't know anything about Fleabag. Is this a BBC show or?
It is actually based on a play written by the woman who plays the main character. And it is just like the first season has her like talking into the camera while no one really sees her.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. It's an interesting type of show.
Actually, now, weirdly, when you said that, I do remember someone talking about it somewhere and talking about how, like, at some point, someone calls her out on talking to the screen. Like, where did you go just now? What are you doing? Who are you talking to? Yeah. And I thought, oh, that's clever. It was not clever enough to make me, like, seek out the whole show or anything. But now that I know that our boy Moriarty
he's in season 2.
Okay, I may have to check it out just for that.
That's one of the reasons why I want to watch it. I know too much about what happens in season 1 to start it until I'm in the right headspace.
Okay.
But season 2 has hot priest Andrew Scott, and it does look very promising.
Yeah. All right.
So apart from Scott playing Adam, we have Paul Mescal who plays Harry.
Yes.
And that is Adam's fledgling relationship. Jamie Bell plays his dad, and Claire Foy plays Mum.
Do me a favor. In the future, if you are making a movie, do not cast 2 pale British dudes with mustaches. Because I was getting a whole, like, fucking, why am I blanking on the psychiatrist that you're gonna kill your dad, marry your mom? The Oedipus complex. Because I was like,
Freud. You're thinking
Freud. Thank you. Yes, and I was thinking. Wait a second. Is the guy he's dating also his dad? Like, is that the same guy? It was only about halfway through the movie where it's like 2 different white dudes with mustaches. Got it. I'm with you now.
Okay, so you thought that Paul Mescal and Jamie Bell were the same person.
I just say, don't have similar haircuts and don't both have mustaches. Like, not to sound racist, but all white dudes with mustaches look alike to me. And honestly, all of them send off warning bells. Like, yeah, all of them. Especially Harry. The
choice of soundtrack definitely didn't help with the ominous vibes that happened a lot.
They knew what they were doing. Yeah, they wanted you to feel unsettled through most of this film, I think.
Well, they succeeded.
Yeah. Hats off to them. But yeah, I didn't know anything about this going in and just fell about the first 20 to 30 minutes into it. I was like, I feel like Cecilia just picked out one of her favorite smut films. I feel like we're not ever. It's one of those like Pornhub videos, but where it's like, oh no, but they have a relationship first. Like you get to watch them court first, and I'm like, oh, okay. I was very happy when supernatural shit started finally happening. I was like, oh yeah. This actually might work for the show. Because at first I was like, I don't know if this is going to work for the show at all.
I was really hoping as I started watching it, because I also knew nothing going into this.
Yeah.
I could have still picked something super gay and gone with that Peacock movie about the conversion camp. Where
that one's actually one that me and the not co-host of this show, Gorship, have occasionally talked about doing. It's on the list.
I want to see that one too, so I could have kept it real gay, but this is what happens when you just Google horror movies and then pick the first one.
Are you sure you didn't Google horror movies with hot dudes naked in it? Like, you just Googled horror movies?
Were they really that hot, though? I didn't.
I mean, I didn't find Harry, mustaches just take it all away from me. But Adam, I always thought Moriarty was kind of hot and a creepy, smart, which that's my type, right? Creepy, smart dude.
It is your type. He's okay.
And that actor's also someone who I could consider being a really good Riddler. Like, I would love to see him, like, take on that role. Like, He's got.
So he's your type.
He's my type.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
maybe
no,
he's
you just
not my
typed in
type.
horror movie, and that's what came up.
I typed in horror movie, and actually, like the mainstays.
You didn't even put the word leftist in there, like just horror movie.
I didn't, but it called to my soul apparently.
It sounds like your algorithm is completely corrupted, because I'm sure if I typed in horror movie, I'd get a different list. But I'm glad we watched it.
Yeah.
Like by the end of it, I was like, I really enjoyed this, and I need a tissue.
It was, oh my god, that ending.
Yeah.
There were a couple of scenes in this where it's like,
there's a few scary parts, but mostly the horror comes from like seeing how people are treated for being gay in the world by the people who they care about most.
Yeah.
So fun times.
It's not heavy or anything.
No. So yeah, let's take you right into this very happy, not heavy movie.
So the very first note I wrote down is, in direct response to our last episode where smoking was everywhere, this movie starts with a contained tobacco use content warning.
And boy, did it. There was smoking. In fact, also smoking from apparently a nearby apartment, because we open up on this very tall, like, high-rise, and we get a few shots of our main character, Adam, and he's, you can see he kind of lives a lonely life. He's sitting watching TV all day and eating junk food out of the fridge.
Like typing on his computer, and he keeps like deleting stuff, and then he just stares at it.
He's a writer.
He's
of
a
course
writer.
He is.
So this movie starts with a dude in his apartment trying and failing to work on a screenplay.
Yeah.
And I wrote down, totally relatable main character.
Of course
though.
he is, right? It almost feels like masturbation when a writer writes about a writer struggling. You're just like, I see you, bro. I see you.
But he sits down to work on something, ends up on the couch eating cookies and watching garbage TV until he falls asleep.
And when we say
stop
eating
looking
cookies,
in my windows, bitch.
Yeah. When we say eating cookies, we mean the sleeve. He ain't going through the whole like if you've ever been in that mode where you were just cookie to mouth.
You don't even notice that Oreo's gone until you are out.
You aren't tasting them. You're not registering them. You're not registering what you're watching on the TV. It's trance from start to finish. Like, it is the zen that monks spend like weeks fasting on mountaintops to obtain. And idiot television has given it to us for nothing.
Except for
1,000 calories
of our souls.
for 30 minutes also, yeah. Yeah, in exchange for your health. But the fire alarm goes off.
Yep.
And he has to leave. So speaking of smoking warnings,
apparently that alarm goes off real regularly because he doesn't even look panicked. No. He just kind of rolls his eyes.
Calm. Yeah. And when he gets out, you it's kind of interesting because you see there's only like 8 or 9 people out here.
Yeah.
And when you look up at the building, there's only a couple lights on in a couple rooms, and you're like, oh, not a lot of folks in this place, or people have gotten so used to this fire alarm that they don't even come out anymore. But Adam does notice one person who refused to leave.
Again, it seems like this happens an awful lot.
Yeah, exactly.
They better not be paying that much in rent. I would have burnt the place down myself.
Well, my impression is that the building is new and they haven't worked all the kinks out yet, and so the alarm keeps going off. Yeah. Although having lived in these kinds of buildings where there's just, where it's like 8 stories and you have 1,000 neighbors, the chances of someone fucking up and setting off a fire alarm are pretty fucking high.
Right.
Because, every additional person, that's one more chaos meter that can cause little accidents to happen. That causes everyone to have to walk outside in the front yard in their, not a yard, in the front parking lot in their pajamas because somebody let their kid cook dinner last night. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he sees a stranger who's like silhouetted in the window. And he looks up and he gets Adam is very good at getting curious looks on his face. He gets a very who's that look on his face.
Yeah.
But he thinks nothing of it. The alarm passes. They let everybody go back in. He goes back up to his room.
The only thing that makes me think this movie might be taking place in the today times is that it looks like that dude's apartment is lit with those LED lights that all the TikTokers are putting over the top of there.
Yes. Well, there's a couple other hints. Like, they're smoking weed out of a vape. They talk about how good things are now.
That's why there wasn't any smoke.
Yeah, they're talking.
Okay. I was just like, they're really sucking at faking this weed. What are they doing?
Well, maybe that's why Adam coughs so much later, because he's letting no smoke escape. Like, all going in the lungs. He did inhale, like, a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot.
No, they got a little vape. So, yeah, that and the fact that they make mention of how good gays have it in now as opposed to quote unquote then.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a time out of place because you never get a timestamp. You never see a calendar.
Nope.
It's one of those this could be anywhere directorial choices, which I think serves the movie well. Like, I think it was a good choice. Adam gets back to his room and gets a little knockety knock at his door.
I said, this really is a horror movie. Neighbors inviting themselves over.
Yes, weird neighbors. So Harry is this is our Harry at the door, and he already looks 3 sails to the wind.
Dude is wasted.
He's not wasted, and like, he's on some shit. Like, you get the vibe like right off the bat, and he talks about how there's no one in the apartment. Like, it's a new apartment, and there's not enough people, and the silence is like
he doesn't like it.
Yeah, he's not good with the silence, and he tries to invite himself in for anything.
Drinking.
Yeah,
sex.
whatever you want. Yeah, like real troubling
choices. Real troubling choices.
Yeah, I mean, I am not near as I got to get to know him first as Cecilia, but even that's too much, too forward. Yeah. Like, I had real stay away vibes off this guy. Not just the mustache, as I'll say again. And you also get this nice contrast between a person who absolutely cannot stand the silence and being alone, and a person who has come to embrace it. Like, yeah. Adam enjoys his alone time to the point that later, when spoilers, you should have already watched the movie. Later, when they do have sex afterwards, Harry kind of starts to invite himself to stay over, and he sort of sees Adam's expression. He's like, or I could just go back to my
Better
place.
idea.
Yeah. And I'll give Harry credit there. He's very understanding of Adam needing the space. Like, yeah. Adam tries to explain, and Harry's like, yeah, no, it's cool. And Adam's like, well, I do want to see you again. I'm just, I need some space now.
Yeah.
For someone who's used to being alone, and this is possibly me projecting, but as someone who's used to being alone, when you have company over in that way, sometimes after you've spent some time together, you need that space back. You need to get back into your isolation bubble. And yeah, good on Harry for recognizing that and being understanding.
Whereas I haven't got to go to the bathroom by myself in 12 years.
Yes. Also a choice, bad one if you like your privacy.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Again, 10 years? 10 years and your car will smell good again.
Oh.
So, yeah, Adam, after sending Harry packing...
well, actually, at this point, because he doesn't let Harry in this time.
That's why I say he sends him...
Okay,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I maybe shouldn't have jumped to the next time they meet so quickly. Yes, this time...
he tells Harry, nah, I'm not into whatever it is you're trying to do here.
Yeah,
and he just shuts the door in his face.
Yeah. and we get a shot of Harry drinking alone and riding the elevator back to his apartment. And we cut to Adam, who's looking through a picture album.
He's just got a box of just stuff.
Yeah. He's just...
Who doesn't have a box of just stuff?
Yeah. Called the Bad Memories box. Everyone keeps one around, I guess.
I mean, you're lying if you don't. Every person has had that box filled with their exes things that they haven't quite committed to throwing away
exes
yet.
thing, dead people's things, just things that
the box
maybe
itself could
maybe it's
be.
that violin that you promised you were going to learn to play, and every time you look at it, you feel shitty because you never so much as put the bow to the strings one time.
I have a box that used to be my grandfather's. And inside of that, so the box itself is a memento to dead people, but inside of that box are like handful of things that I have absolutely no use or need for that just
Can't get rid of.
nope.
Yeah. I think we all understand completely.
Yeah, we all have the depression box.
Yeah. We cut from him looking at these pictures to him riding the train the next day.
And then awkwardly standing outside of a house.
Yes, he's going to a house that is in one of the pictures. And yeah, he's just standing there, looking kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then he wanders into like a nearby field.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
For some reason.
And then there's kind of a time lapse. He's just sort of staring off into space. And then you cut back to him staring off, and it looks like it's gotten dark. Like he's just zoned out for an hour or two. Just probably filled with the feels. I got a bunch of feelings.
And then a second dude in a leather coat comes out into the field.
And just gestures for him to follow him. And my thought was, Harry, are you stalking Adam? It took me an embarrassing long time to get away from this thought because, again, even when I saw who he was, I thought it was Harry.
That is impressive.
Though. We will come to find Adam's dad, but at this juncture,
the thing that threw me off was that he looked so young. Mm-hmm. So, like, he looks like he's the same age, and then there's a scene where he kisses him.
Yeah.
And he kisses him full on the mouth.
Yeah, when
and
he's
I was
leaving.
like, is this a threesome? Did he not have sex with Harry because he knew he was going to go here and have sex with this dude? Like, what is...
I was very confused.
I was very confused, too. And then the dude offers him a cigarette, and Adam's like, no, thank you. And I wrote down, is he just allergic to taking things from people? Because Harry also offered him alcohol, and he's like, no, thank you. And I'm just like...
Don't
you do
drink,
smoke. I watched
smoke.
you.
What do you do? You don't drink, don't smoke. What do you do?
Are you just don't want to take nothing from nobody? I'm confused.
That might have been it. But him and not Harry, I did not realize, it took me so long. So he follows the gesturing stranger to like an alcohol store. Mm-hmm. And again, I thought it was Harry. Man likes alcohol. It's all coming together, right? Guy comes out, offers him a cigarette, and he's like, oh, come. And takes him to a house, and I'm like, wait, I thought Harry lived in the apartment. And then he's like, oh, it looks just like, it's him, blah, 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 blah. And he's talking to someone we can't see.
Yeah.
And then a lady walks out, and I'm like, Harry, I also thought you were gay. Come to find out, this is actually Adam's mother and father. And you get right off the bat that there is some baggage here.
Yeah.
They haven't seen him for years. They don't know what he's doing. At one point they say, we didn't think you were ever going to come by again. So at this juncture I was like, oh, these people did something bad. My thought was, these people did something bad to him, and it may have had something to do with him being gay. Like maybe they threw him out of the house. I was trying to, at this point you're playing detective. You're trying to catch up and figure out what the hell's going on.
I thought something was weird because my note here is his parents don't look old enough. That was the thing that messed me up.
That didn't clock with me at all because I'm so used to Hollywood having parents that look almost the same age as their kids and having teenagers that look like they're 30. I just assumed that was just Hollywood shit.
His parents
I should have clocked it. It was a very good clue that because Hollywood has poisoned that well for me so often, I caught none of it.
I wrote down here, they're definitely dead, right? Yeah. They did not. He looked older than them almost. It was definitely, it was a choice that was made, and they did not look right. It was not, if they had tried to pass them off as actually, still living, and it was, they just he came out, and they reacted very poorly.
Yeah.
I probably would have docked this movie 20 points just for that.
Or you would have been like, well, it's forgivable. They were only 13 when he came out, so they were just kids themselves.
He came out with a pride flag out of the uterus.
He was born wearing a rainbow diaper. And they were not, and they immediately put him up for adoption.
Yeah.
It's weird they have any relationship at all. But no, he comes in and he's talking about his life. He's like, I'm a writer in London. And they're like, oh, we knew you were going to London. We knew you were going to be a writer. And the mom says, if I knew the neighbors, I'd run and tell them right now. Which I thought was a funny line because nobody knows their neighbors anymore now.
Yeah.
It became more funny as the film went on and I found out what that actually meant.
Yeah.
But even then, it was a funny line. Like, yeah, if I knew the neighbors, I'd go tell them how proud I am of my boy. Like,
it was cute. It was very cute.
Yeah. And I thought maybe he's adopted. There's definitely some fucking baggage here of some sort.
Yeah.
But they seem to have a good time. Like, they talk about memories. Like, oh, you had this little red car you used to drive around. He's like, yeah, that's one of my first memories. And they talked about how scared he was of fireworks. And he would cry a lot. And
he was an anxious kid.
He was a real anxious kid. And I'm like, yeah, aren't we all, buddy?
Yeah.
Do they make non-anxious kids anymore? Is that even a model that's coming off the assembly line these days? Because
from personal experience, yes and no. I've got one of each.
I guess occasionally, but yeah. So they end up. There's a very cute scene of the parents dancing like really close to like a slow song, and him in the background just smiling. I'm like,
just
okay.
enjoying the presence.
Yeah, it's good that you found a place where you feel comfortable, because he seems a lonely guy, and I'm like, well, I'm glad you went to see your parents. Like, you needed to get out. He comes, and yes, when he's leaving, both mom and dad give him a kiss on the lips and tell him, don't be a stranger, come visit more often.
Yeah.
We hadn't seen him in years, right?
Yeah.
We cut to
very normal parental things.
Yeah, he has a nice awkward elevator ride back up with Harry. Harry apologizes for the previous night's behavior and says he stopped drinking.
Yeah.
Poor Adam. When Harry gets off at his floor, Adam's like, I actually might like to see this guy again. And immediately is like, well, I like alcohol. You should come by. Like, what does he say? He's like, I would like a whiskey if you ever wanted to. And then the door is shut. And I'm like,
so try to ask him out.
Not only do you ask him out right as the door's shutting, you ask him to do the thing he just told you he quit doing. And I'm like, Adam, we've all been there, my awkward friend.
Yeah, I was going to say, look, he was trying.
Yes.
I don't think he has very many conversations with real life people.
And probably even less with, like, guys who he's interested in pursuing a relationship with. Like, that narrows the margins even more. So now you've got all that uncomfortableness that comes with, trying to flirt with someone. So the door shuts and Adam's like, doing the head shake and you blew it, kid. But he goes back to his room, gets a knock. Harry's there, I think.
Well, no, because first...
Oh, is there a scene
Yeah, because first he does go back to his room and then he's looking out his window and Harry's like on the field and he grabs a pair of binoculars.
Oh yeah, and he waves to him.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite of like what Harry said happened the other time. Because Harry said he saw Adam looking up at him when he was in the window. So now Adam's like... So you've completely gone full circle. So from
and
that
then
awkwardness, he comes up. Yeah.
Adam gets a knock on his door and Harry has returned.
Yeah, but we get the idea that like neither Harry nor Adam have good sleep schedules. Because like... Before he gets the binoculars, he wakes up and it's some wee hour of the morning. And he takes a sip of water, and I'm like, I can't drink water that's been sitting by my bed all night. Like, I wake up thirsty, sure, everybody does, but I just can't do it.
That's why you get a nice
get a lid
thermos that has like a good water. Like, it keeps it cold so that when the ice can still be in it. And that way, whenever you take a drink in the middle of the night...
I need to invest. I do. Because I am thirsty, but I can't imagine. Like, people that just drink a glass of water that's been sitting on their nightstand all night, those people...
I have cats.
Oh, yeah. You can do it anyway.
Not unless you want to drink hair.
Yes. But Harry comes in. Him and Adam have some talk. They talk about queer versus gay as far as like terms for gay people.
Yeah, it's a very cool talk about word reclamation almost because
it's also about which one did people make fun of you with when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And that's the one that you're going to be less likely to use or that you're going to use twice as often to try and reclaim.
Well, and there's a lot in like the youth of today use queer a lot more often. Mm-hmm. And it might be partly because there's a lot of connotation with gay more recently in society, and queer is less less of a trigger word almost.
Yeah.
But I also just think it's really cool to try to, and I personally consider myself queer, but I just think it's cool to try to take a word and like take it back from people who try to use it.
I remember, because I am 100 years old, I remember when the term queer went from meaning odd or strange to being a slur against homosexuals. Like, I remember the transition. Because I remember, one of my favorite expressions used to be like, "Oh, that's a queer duck, isn't it?" Like just a way of saying someone was acting weird.
Yeah.
And then it came along that it was a slur, and then people moved on to the F slur, which still seems to be the order of the day. And but like it still felt odd. Like even now, talking to you, for me saying queer, it feels queer.
as meant by the 18th century poetry.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, in direct contrast to that, when I was growing up, "That's so gay" was a thing that was said a lot.
Yeah.
And it was not a compliment.
Well, we are also talking, Adam and Harry are talking about the differences between the two of them.
And
Because, Adam's, I don't know, 5-10 years older than Harry.
Yeah.
So they are talking about, like, oh, well, gay was the way to be mean when I was a kid. Well, queer was how they insulted us when I was a kid. Yeah.
And I mean, that same divide exists right here. Because, "That's so gay." That was not said as a, like, awesome sign of really cool stuff. That was said as a derogatory,
weak,
like
effeminate,
or just stupid.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It eventually broke down to mean anything you did not like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
a great look. I don't know. Early 2000s kids, whoever it was.
The irony is now that my older daughter is going around saying gay at everything, but it is a good thing. Like, she enjoys, like, oh, this has got a rainbow on it. Gay. Yeah. Love it. Give me more of those. Like,
right. Yeah,
it is funny how vernacular changes and how quickly it can transform the meaning.
It's also weird how, like, the reclaiming comes from both sides, because like now you have the conservatives being like, I don't want gay to be a positive thing, I want to get it, let's reclaim the word gay as an insult, and let's reclaim the rainbow for God's promise to only kill most of us next time. Like, let's get those things back.
He's just promising not to do it with water.
Yeah, next time's fire. He's already weirdly let us know, like a psycho.
So I guess what we really need to be
like a murderer with a gimmick. He's like, oh, I'm letting you know I'm coming.
Like
I'm even letting you know how.
The Axeman of New Orleans.
So what the really Zodiac killer, like, I'm sending you notes. Like,
what we really need to do is invest in fire extinguishers, and we can just have God figured out and take care of it like that.
Yes. If only the people of Pompeii had more fire extinguishers.
Hey.
So, after a little bit of the most painful small talk, Harry somehow continues to give off the worst vibes, even while asking for consent for a kiss from Adam.
That was cute, though. He did ask. I appreciated that part.
I approved of the consent. I can't. Harry weirds me out, and it's funny
it's
too.
It's the mustache,
because you
are like,
which is funny as someone who currently has a little hair under my lip. It's the mustache, and it's also ironic because about halfway through this, I completely changed teams. I'm like, Harry, you need to get away from Adam. Right now, I'm like, Adam, you need to get away from Harry, and eventually, I will totally jump ship and be like, Harry, get away from Adam.
Run, Harry, run.
So they have sex and then they talk.
They don't have sex though. They have the world's quickest.
I'm sorry. Yes.
They have the world's quickest makeout session, and then I think Adam gets a blowjob.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess technically that is sex. Oral is still sex.
Yes.
But
despite what a Clinton will tell you, they have some intimate moments.
Well,
I wrote You're right.
Down,
it is not full-on sex because Adam's a little nervous. It's been a while for him.
Yeah. Well, I wrote down that was the quickest makeout session ever, and that's so cute. He forgot how to breathe. Like, Adam hasn't had... Adam's been alone for long enough that he's like, I forgot how to do this.
Yeah.
So, this is also... This little talk after the blowjobs and everything.
This is when Adam says his parents are dead,
Yep.
and my brain totally melts.
I went for the win.
Yeah. Yeah, you called it. Again, based on a thing that, again, because Hollywood has tricked me, I didn't even notice. My assumption was like, oh, he must mean his real parents. Then he got adopted by these people, and they ended up being horrible, and then he had to leave home, because again, horrible. Cecilia picked this movie, so he probably got thrown out because he was gay. That is where I was at that moment.
You know what? Fair.
Yeah, I was using the clues I had. So he, after their talk, he goes back to visit his parents again, because now it's become a habit. Like
I wrote down, okay, so at this point, this is the first time, because he gets on this train.
Yeah.
And it's the same train every time. He always gets on the train, and he's always, like, in and out of sleep, and, like, clearly he's not having a great time.
If you want to capture the loneliness of living in the big city, have one person sitting on the train by themselves and looking out the window. It's like fucking filmmaking 101. Like, the city is a lonely, cold place. Need proof? Look at this guy.
But I did write down here, where is he actually going during these little flash of dream memory things? Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't establish, you never actually, until the end when he drags Harry with him, you never actually see him go into the house.
Correct. He just ends up in the house.
Yeah, he just ends up, and I'm like...
Due to cuts, he's just in.
Yeah. Does I was wondering, like, did the house not get bought by anybody? Like, how does...
It's very, like, there's some ambiguity at the end of how much of any of this happened.
Exactly.
Yeah. But at this point, we don't know all that. We just know that... And
I just noticed that if they're dead, which we just established, where is he going?
Yeah.
When he goes to see them?
I assume he is going to the house, and it is one of those... did you watch Haunting of Hill House? Mm-mm. Okay, well, there's a scene where, like... one of the characters is in the house. So the house is old and abandoned. But you see one of the characters in the house dancing with somebody, and the house is beautiful and well lit. And then just for like a second, it cuts to what's actually happening, and she's dancing by herself in this old abandoned creepy house. I imagine he's walking through the house. I imagine the house is there, and it's condemned. Because when he does finally come back with Harry, it looks old and crappy and dark. Like no one's been there for a while. But again, I don't even know if that happened. That didn't happen. So I'm using an example from another part of the dream to explain. But I think he actually went to the house and just kind of wandered around. If the house was unlocked, in the house. If not, just kind of outside thinking he was inside. Or it could be he goes to a field and zones out like we saw him do.
Yeah.
It doesn't really explain. But at this point, comes in the rain. That's the other thing. These dreams are so vivid. They have so many little details.
Yeah.
Both his dreams with Harry and his dreams with his parents. So he comes in wet, and to the point that his mother is like, oh, take your clothes off and I'll put them in the dryer.
Yeah.
Like, so you don't catch your death of cold.
Yeah.
And the dad's not here, so it's just mom today. And he has to go up to his old room, which if anyone's ever left home and then come back and gone to your old room, that's just a feeling. I don't know how to describe it, but that's just a emotion that
it's like a trap.
It feels it feels like a trap, but it also it's just weird. Like I don't know any other way to feel that same emotion. And now, like, you know, like once that room's gone, you can't anymore. But like I don't know. I can't even describe the feeling you get when you go back.
Yeah.
It's not a good feeling. I will say that. Maybe for some people it is. For me, it's not a good feeling. But yeah, he goes back into his old room, and his mom comes up here, and this is when I thought something was going to happen, because his mom's all like touching his chest and talking about how he's grown up, and she's like, "Oh, I thought you'd have more hair." And when she said, "I thought you'd have more hair like my father," I'm like, wait, so he's not adopted. So who the hell are these people? And then then I immediately came up with a new theory. Oh, he's lying to Harry for some reason. He's telling Harry his parents are dead for some reason. Maybe because he hasn't come out and he doesn't want like the drama and like Harry's like, let me meet your mom and dad, and he doesn't know how to tell him. Oh, my parents hate the gays. Like, I don't know, but that was my new theory I was running with.
You know what? That's a fair theory, though.
I was shooting all over the map, and he gets cleaned up and goes downstairs, and she made his favorite. I do not know what his favorite was. I don't
think they ever established it either.
It was some sort of
like.
It looked like a bread pastry, maybe, but I couldn't tell.
It's delicious.
Oh, no, it's flapjacks. Because she says you can take them with you at the end.
I'm not going to eat the pancakes, that's right.
Yeah, it was good old flapjacks. But yeah, she asked him, hey, you have a girlfriend? That kind of stuff. The leading questions a mom wants to know.
Especially after she hadn't seen you for ages.
Yeah.
And she's like, because she points out she didn't see a wedding ring. And she's like, so I know you're not married, but you have a girlfriend.
And then she proceeds to describe the girlfriend that she has always pictured him with.
Yeah.
And he has to break it to her. No, I do not have a girlfriend.
He doesn't say anything for a hot minute.
Yeah, well, she jumps on him about it. She's like, well. Yeah. And he's like, no, I don't have a girlfriend.
And then he points out that it would be hard for him to have a girlfriend because he doesn't like girls.
Yeah. And then mom starts hitting him hard with it.
I wrote down, also, coming out to your dead parents with little skull emojis, because that is how at this point, one, I had already totally bought into they're dead.
Yeah.
So he is coming out to his dead parents, or his dead mom.
Yeah.
And I wrote down, this is literally his imagination. This could go way better.
Yeah.
Like, he did not have to do this to himself. He did this to himself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you believe... Excuse me. If you believe that there is no supernatural aspect to this, and that it is all in his head, which I don't know where I am on that, but if you do believe that, yeah, he is trying to imagine what it would be like if his parents had lived long enough for him to have to come out to them. And first of all, I like that this is thrown on its head, because normally in most of these stories, the dad takes it bad and the mom takes it good. This was sort of reversed in a lot of ways. I think, now neither of them took it great, but I think the mom took it way worse than the dad took it. Like, but we'll get there when we get to the dad. But the mom is, just like, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't think any parent would want to hear that, or something to that effect that she says. I don't want.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No.
And that was the line. That was just like, well, we have a winner. I can't think of a worse line than that. That is hard.
Yeah. This whole interaction made me angry as a parent.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing where she's all like, well. She's all like, she's concerned about what other people are going to think.
Yeah, well, and it's funny. Adam even says, "I bet you're glad you don't know the neighbors now, aren't you?"
Yeah. She goes from the last time he saw them to being wanting to go brag to people to all of a sudden being like, "Well, I can't tell people this. I can't talk about this."
No parent would want their kid to be like that. She almost can't say it. Like,
yeah. It made me very angry, and I just.
Oh yeah, this was a pretty harsh and heartbreaking. I was just mad at the mom, and I was like, "Well, yeah, no wonder he left. No wonder." Again, I didn't know they were dead yet. I was like, "No wonder he hadn't talked to you in like all these years. He knew this was gonna be like this, and it is, and it sucks."
I felt bad for him because like I said, I was fully in on they're dead trope, and I was like, "Why are you doing this to yourself?" You could make this go any way that you need it to, because this is either. I fully buy into the whole like this is in his head.
Yeah.
So to me, it seemed like there was a lot of self-hatred.
You wrote the worst story you could.
Yeah, there's a lot of self-flagellation involved in his coming out.
Like a lot of anger towards them as well in some cases, or because. He could have made them very accepting. Mm-hmm. He could have made them the perfect parents that they weren't in real life, but he didn't.
Yeah. He
might have made them overly critical in the other direction. Although he softens them as time goes. But this joint, his mom is whew.
I did not like his mother in this scene.
Yeah, and then she starts justifying it. She's like, well, no one ever knew what was going on in that odd little head of yours. You were always running away from everything. Like, now she's doing I should have seen it earlier because look how gay you acted when you were a kid.
Being scared of things that would logically all children are afraid of.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't...
I got hit by fireworks when I was a kid, so I also was very scared of fireworks. But, because I got hit by them, and I totally related
Here's
to this.
the thing.
Because people were always like, why are you so scared of fireworks? They're up in the sky. They can't hurt you. I was like, one literally did one time.
Well, even if one didn't, there are loud things that go boom that unless you are the one lighting them, you don't fucking know when that's going to happen.
Right. And they're fire. And fire, in theory, it burns. Yeah.
They're loud. They make a lot of noise. Yeah, they might be pretty, but that doesn't mean that the person who's not aware of when and where and why they're going off isn't going to be frightened by that.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, it's a weird...
It's judgmental and rude and unnecessary.
It's a weird thing to hold your kid up to. Yeah. It's a very weird standard to hold your kid up to.
You are scared of fireworks.
Well,
clearly
a weenie.
A raging homosexual.
Yeah.
That is how we determine.
And it's like, they're your colors. They're rainbow colors. And still, you ran and you hid in the... You ironically ran and hid in the closet.
Should have been glitter. That's how we got it.
Should have just been glitter. Safer, but the effects stay with you longer. Like, that glitter will stick on you forever.
You'll never get it out.
Yeah. And she says, and then she kind of takes a turn to like, well, I worry for you too, because she starts asking questions like, well, don't people treat you bad? Like, isn't it a hard life? I hear it's a very lonely life. And Adam says, well, if I'm lonely, it's not because I'm gay. And I feel like he then stops and he gets a look. And that look is basically him going, wait, then why am I lonely? And it's a question lonely people probably ask themselves all the time. Like, why? And then they start playing this exact game where you go into fantasy world. Well, like, maybe I wouldn't be lonely if I was straight. Maybe I wouldn't be lonely if I was prettier or more handsome. Maybe I wouldn't be lonely if I didn't have this job that kept me in the house all the time. Maybe I wouldn't be lonely if I'd stayed in the bridge club. Like, whatever. Like, you have a problem and you immediately the wheels start turning. You start trying to figure out.
See, I kind of thought it was him calling them out on dying, but I was in a different place mentally.
That's true, and that's probably more correct. For me, it was more like you've just identified a problem that you didn't really know you had. Well, like I don't think until that point he knew how lonely he was until he said it out loud.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that problem like that like blindsides you, even though it's been there for a long time, hits you, you immediately start trying to figure out, well, where the hell did that come from? Why am I that thing? Like, whoa, what?
See, the way I read that interaction was different because there was a moment where, to me, it was like, if I am lonely, it's not because I'm gay.
Yeah.
To me, that was, if I'm lonely, it's because you're dead.
Left. Yeah.
And then there was that awkward of like, well, if we both acknowledge that you are gone, I have to acknowledge how the fuck I'm sitting here.
Yeah, this isn't
having this conversation with you.
Yeah.
And then they both kind of like change directions, because then she's like, well, you can take the pancakes, I can't eat.
She's like, yeah, like your clothes are probably dry now. She's very dismissive at this point. She all but throws him out. She's like, your clothes are probably dry by now, you can take the pancakes, I'm not gonna eat them.
Yep.
And then we cut to him back
Do
home.
they ever eat anything?
No. They actually, I feel like they might sip tea at some point, but I don't even know if that's true. And I bet if I went back and watched it, it isn't. Yet another clue that, because who can resist a hot cup of tea if it's sitting right in front of you on a rainy day? Not me, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he goes home and sees Harry, and he's got a bit of a fever.
Oh.
Then we're getting to our hot bath.
I did write down here, then the true horror of being known. So I also wrote down, because Harry comes over and he touches Adam's head and he's like, you feel hot. So I wrote, is this something with the British then, that getting caught in the rain equals a death spell? I thought it was just an old-timey Jane Austen romance novel way of things.
It certainly was in the 1700s.
But apparently it's just a British thing, because if they still get caught in rain, the bitch is gonna die.
Well,
Like-
if you live in London, rain is a much more constant threat. It's always rainy in London, right?
Yeah.
Although, weirdly, I spent a week in London. It didn't rain one day while I was there. And I kind of went expecting that.
Yeah,
Like, you go
yeah.
to Seattle, you think it's going to rain. You go to...
I just thought
You go
that
to
the
England,
rain
you think
equals
it's gonna
death
rain.
was a Jane Austen trope.
Apparently, it's just an English trope.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Because boy gets a fever
Yeah.
from getting his shirt wet. I used to play in the rain
Same.
with and without my children, and I have yet to
Although I will
experience
also say,
frost.
warm summer rain in London, always
warm?
cold, probably. Yeah. Again, I never experienced it, despite being there. Yeah. But I'm assuming it's a cold rain in London.
Well, he ends up having to get a hot bath
Yeah,
because
because it cures all, according to Harry's aunt or grandma or somebody.
his nan.
His nan, which I don't know what that means.
It's grandma.
Okay, thank you. Mine was Nana. Nan sounds weird to me, which is weird because it's only one more letter.
Yeah.
No. So yeah, they all have some talk. They have some talk and some sexy times.
Yep. Someone gets fingered in the bathtub.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
It was nice.
And Harry talks about his family, which is interesting because Adam's probing him with questions. Asking,
Now he gets probed
Let me,
by Harry.
Let me get some questions. Let me be clear here. Let me be clear. He's probing him with questions about his family, which is, I assume, because Adam just got done seeing his family, or his mom anyway, and so he's in a family state of mind.
Yeah.
And Harry talks about how his parents kind of accepted him. They're not as accepting as you should be in insert time here, but they didn't throw me out or anything. So they were.
He also talks. Cool. He's also very lonely and isolated.
Oh yeah, he talks about he's on the edge of the family.
Yeah,
which I like. I like that expression.
Yeah, he's not quite excluded, but he's also kind of just an afterthought. Like he's a thing that only gets included. I guess to say that they included him, basically, which is a real shitty way to treat somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's interesting because, like, he does visit them occasionally. He doesn't see them often. And from Adam's point of view, it's kind of like, oh, well, maybe you should be there every day. Like, you never know when you're going to lose, you know. So Adam's coming from a totally different place. Harry's at I'm just about fed up with him. I can stand him about once a year at Christmas, and that's enough. And Adam's like, oh, you need to go over there every day and twice on Sunday. Like, you never know what'll happen.
Yeah.
So they are
totally different headspaces.
Totally different headspaces, which I thought was kind of wild. I think our next scene is Adam coming back to his parents' house, and this time it's daddy time.
Hanging out with Dad.
Yeah, so we get some alone time with Father now this time. And his dad puts on a song that you would recognize from the first BioShock game, which was kind of hit me out of nowhere. For those who played BioShock, that you might find the scene jarring because of what it's used in BioShock 4. But yeah, the dad puts it on, and the dad's kind of talking about how
he's talking very short and clipped at first.
Yeah.
Like it is uncomfortable.
It is very uncomfortable. He basically says, your mom will be back soon. We were worried you wouldn't come back. And then Adam's like, oh, so I guess she told you. And he's like, well, yeah, she did. And I don't know. Like I say, I feel like the dad kind of, in some ways, handled it better than the mom. But also, he had more time with it. Like, he got to sit with it. Whereas, had it been sprung on him like it was her, he might have responded very similar to how she did. But he had some time to sit with it. And he straight up says, like, she will come around and realize it's not about her at all. And, it's about you. And they... And then they have a little laugh over how he couldn't throw a baseball. His dad's like, yeah, I kind of always knew because you couldn't throw a baseball. And he's like... oh, you're calling me the cliche now. And he's like, well, can you throw a ball? He's like, no. And they both kind of laugh. And for me, that was sort of a heart, kind of, walking up and kissing the elephant in the room type thing.
Yeah.
It takes a bit of a darker turn where his father straight up says that, like, I I think to some of the jokes that I made about like your English teacher who would prance around with his limp wrist, as he says. And how if we had been school chums, like I probably would have bullied you like those kids.
He straight up says that he used to walk by his son's room and hear him crying and walk completely by. And like, no words of comfort, no questions of
and
like...
Adam calls him out on that. He's like, why did you never come in?
Well, he starts calling
like,
Adam first. He's like, why did... Or maybe I got...
Well, no, Adam calls him out first. He's like, why did you never come in? And his father's like, why did you never tell me this was happening? And Adam fires back like, well, the
jokes you made...
I asked you first. Yeah. Like, and his dad...
Did you hear yourself talking 2 seconds ago?
Yeah. And his dad... It's like, well, I kind of... It was almost like he was saying, like, I felt like I didn't have the right because if I had been that age, I would have done the same thing. So I didn't know how to come in there and tell you that those kids are wrong and blah, 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 blah. Like, I wonder, even though the dad doesn't say this, if this was one of those fucking, like, bullshit tough love things, like, he's got to suck it up. Like, that's how school is, man. He's got to sit in there and cry it out and then put on a tough face and get back in there. Like,
it's almost...
He seems like the type that would approach
it is
parenting that
almost
way.
Like, I can't straight up bully my son about being gay.
Maybe they'll get it out of him.
Get it out of him.
Yeah.
It is kind of that approach to it at first.
Yeah.
And then now that he's grown and it didn't work, it's like, well, I guess we're here now.
And then Adam's like, and to answer your question, that's why I didn't tell you. Because I know that you were disappointed in me being that.
Well, and he makes the point of his dad used to say something about not sitting with his legs crossed like a girl. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I still think about that today when I cross my legs.
Yeah.
And that's fucking...
Oh, yeah. Just a offhanded comment that his dad probably didn't think about a second after he said it.
It's one of those
like, don't cross your legs, you look like a girl.
Yeah.
And just something that he said because his dad probably said it to him, and his dad said it to him, and that just... It was just fired off.
It's one of those
things
that gets referenced, like on TikTok. They'll be whenever a child tries to call out a parent for a particularly abusive like situation or time, and the parent's like, "Well, I don't remember that," and the child's like, "Yeah, because it was Tuesday for you, but it fucking scarred me."
Right.
Like,
yeah.
That notion of like. Which is actually, honestly, probably the scariest and worst part of being a parent. You never know what thing you say out of reflex is going to be the thing that your child, like, becomes a core memory and becomes a part of them that they have to work years and decades to dismantle.
But the other side of that coin, and I don't think parents give themselves enough thought to this or enough credit for it, is that works both ways. Like, you also remember that thing that, in my case, that, like, my grandmother, those things that she did for me that were so good, and that, like, I turned out a better person because she did these things for me.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing you can hope is that the balance is in favor of those. Because you are not going to completely avoid...
Oh, of course not.
You can't live with someone for a long period of time and avoid hurting them in some way, shape, or form with words that you say. Well, you just want to hope that the good outweighs the bad, and that your child comes out better than they would have had you not been there.
Well, and parents are people too. I'm not...
Yeah.
I do think it's overwhelming, but, like, at the same time, I don't think it's the end of the world the first time you yell at your child. I have raised my voice in situations where I do regret it. And even those can be models for, like, hey, this is how I just fucked up.
Yeah.
I fucked up and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And even that you can make into something where you can both learn and try to be better next time.
Absolutely.
But I do think it can be overwhelming, that especially if you're someone who hasn't done enough self-work or are in the middle of self-work even.
Or do not know what self-work is.
Look, those kind of people think that they're great parents.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure if you had asked this father when his child was small...
Oh, yeah.
he just said he was doing his best.
He's not even at the start. He wasn't at the starting line at that point.
No.
Like, he didn't even know there was a race.
Yeah.
Like,
good parents have a lot of questions. Bad parents are sure that they've got it right.
Yeah, that's true in society too. Like, good politicians have a lot of questions. Bad politicians know they're right already.
Mm-hmm.
Good generals, good pastors, good lawyers, good fucking fast food employees. You should always question.
Yes.
Always double check. Check with the inner thoughts and make sure that just because you've done it this way 100 times, that this is the way to do it, and that you are not fucking up.
Yeah. No, but yeah, there's definitely, it can be a little overwhelming to be like, will this time be a mess up where it sticks? And you don't want that to happen most of the time. But apparently some parents would have been fine with that.
Right. And this is where I say that the father is the better example here, because he comes to he comes face to face with the bully that he was.
Yeah.
And to the point where he starts crying. He's like, I'm sorry, I should never have left you alone in your room to cry. Like, that was... And he's not just apologizing for that. He's apologizing for all of it.
Yeah.
And Adam receives that and understands that. And then his father, and this is where I got teary-eyed the first time. Like, he did it to me twice. But the first time is when the dad's like, can I hug you? And Adam's like, I wish you would. Yeah, I'm like, oh my God.
And then you look in the mirror and he's a child again.
It's the child, in the mirror, it's the child hugging the father. Like, fixing the trauma. Going back in time and repairing the trauma, which of course
was so...
you cannot do, but... So Adam comes home in a much better mood because him and his dad, like, he got the closure with his father.
Yeah.
Like, his mom's still an unwritten check, but he got the closure with his father. So he comes home, he's like, Harry, let's go be gay on the town. I want everybody to see us. I'm feeling good.
They have sex first, because I wrote down sex first, then a date.
Yes.
But before
much like fight scenes in comics. Sometimes I just...
Hey, there's a lot of adrenaline. You got some adrenaline to burn off. No, I did write down before that, when they were having that interaction, when his dad and him were actually talking about the shit, is it must be really difficult to remember your parents when you lose them young like that.
Yeah.
And then when you're trying to write a story for yourself about how that would have gone, the balance of trying to stay true to who a person is.
Yeah.
And to write this in a way, because again, Adam, in my opinion, is making this up for himself, to try to write this in a way where you don't end up totally destroyed at the end of it.
I hope
that balance was so delicate.
Like, I'm hoping the parents are real, and some of the details are so... Again, he's a writer, so he's probably good at writing detailed stories. But, like, some of the way things work are so real. How I would imagine an interaction with your dead parents would go. That I'm like, and also I want the closure to be real. And it feels like if it's all just a bunch of shit that he made in his head, then, like, I'm not saying it has no value, but for me, it's much more therapeutic if you actually did talk to the dead spirit of your parents. Like, for me, that's a whole nother level.
This is one of those moments where I'm the pessimist, because I kind of think closure is fake. And
that book you were looking at, maybe you should talk to someone. So does that professional therapist. So
I kind of am of the opinion that closure is a nice little tale.
Yes, but I'm watching a movie, Cecilia, and therefore I can have it. I think dragons are fake, but if in a movie they want to put in a dragon, I'm here for it. And so in a movie, if I can't get closure in a movie, Cecilia, where can I get it?
You can't.
Frick. I'm walking out of time. Actually, I got something on my phone I need to read.
Alright, I will continue on by myself. And
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Because, super weird you bring this up, because it's just a quote from that book that I want to read. Our younger selves think in terms of a beginning, middle, and some kind of resolution. But somewhere along the way, perhaps in that middle, we realize that everyone lives with things that may not get worked out. That the middle has to be the resolution. And how we make meaning of it becomes our task. That is Lori Gottlieb. And she wrote that book. Maybe you should talk to someone. I just got done reading it. And that one quote in it I thought was really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, they decide to sex it up and then go to the gay club. What?
I did write down here, disco doesn't have a whole lot going for it. It's actually the genre I despise the most in the existence of music history.
Although it's only the appearance that's disco. Like, the music is...
garbage. But
well, I was
disco
going to say,
balls...
it doesn't feel disco. It feels like, well, maybe disco, techno, Euro
Garbage.
tech or something. But yeah.
There's a
Fair
whole...
enough. You didn't like the music at the club, is what you're telling me.
Well, actually, I wrote it because I saw the disco ball,
Yeah.
and I was like, disco doesn't have a lot going for it, but I do like the disco balls.
It's really just Staying Alive, honestly. I like that's the only song from disco that I'm like, yeah, I like Staying Alive. That's disco, right? But yeah, I also wrote, disco balls doing cocaine in the bathroom.
Ketamine.
How cliche? Well, they think it's cocaine, and then he snorts it. He's like, I think this is ketamine. But yeah, if this gets much more cliched, I'm gonna freak out. It is the most cliched gay club experience that you could possibly have.
Having never been to a club, I all of that went right over my head.
Well, trust me, it's cliche. I also wrote, wow, even when the white men are gay, they don't have any rhythm, huh? There's a lot of dance scenes where I'm just like, can you hear the music, or are you just dancing to whatever's in your own head?
Wow! Someone should...
I'm judging.
Someone should talk to Simon Cowell and sub in for So You Think You Can Dance.
Too mean? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Too mean?
yeah.
Too mean to the hat. Look, they're
high.
They are having a great time, and they are high as fuck. Or at least at first they're having a great time, and they're high as fuck.
They're high as
good
fuck.
on them.
And I don't think you should hold what people on drugs, when they're trying to dance, do against them. There are other things you can definitely hold against them, but dancing's fine.
Oh no, here's the thing. I don't think you should look cool dancing. I really don't. I think if you're enjoying it, you're not going to look cool. And if you're looking cool, you're not going to enjoy it. Like,
okay. Those are interesting
that's why the people
scales.
that dance on stage are never smiling. They're always looking like the fucking like the world's about to end.
Perma-scowl.
Yeah, they got the perma-scowl with their dance. And if they are smiling, they come off a little creepy.
You aren't wrong.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm very much that dance like the world, like no one's watching. What is that song? Or is it I don't remember. Anyway, yeah, dance. Fucking dance, and don't worry about how stupid you look. If you and the person you're dancing with are having a good time, then that's really all that matters.
Yeah.
But Adam seems like he's starting to have a bad trip. He loses sight of Harry. Kind of starts freaking out a little bit. But it's all fine because he wakes up and it's Christmas and he's in his kitty pajamas because apparently he is 12 years old again.
But there's like this weird, because I wrote down Harry just sort of starts being there a lot because it seems like there's this. And I also wrote down think of lesbian U-Haul jokes for here, but I didn't do that.
Noted.
But yeah, but it seems like there's time that passes where Harry is in Adam's apartment a lot. Like he's sitting there reading.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot all about the montage. You get like a little happy relationship montage.
Yeah, there's
of them for weeks, just hanging out. Yeah,
that has happened. That is just little flashes of Harry just
sitting on the couch eating pizza.
Yeah,
one's working while one's reading. Just living.
Yeah.
I forgot about that part. Yeah.
But then
glad you mentioned it. Yes.
He does end up back at his parents' house, and his mom's like singing him a song as an apology. His mom and dad
are singing him this apology song, and it was probably my favorite song out of all the songs in the film. I mean, I just like the song. I was like, ooh, I need to, and I didn't, so I need to do it now. But I need to figure out what that song is and add it to my playlist. Yeah. But yeah, it's also funny because they're all singing it together, but it's also the mom and dad apologizing to him. Like, if I ever made you feel like second best, I'm sorry. Let me make it up to you. And like they're just hanging the tinsel on the tree, and it's just it's the best Christmas ever.
And Adam gets to put the little fairy on top.
Yep.
The little fairy, the first time I saw it, I thought was like an evil possessed like toy.
Yeah,
it looked bad.
And then they do a picture shot, and he's again an adult in footy pajamas. But when they take the shot, it's kid him.
Yeah,
So that
he's
was a
tiny
cool
again.
little effect. And his mom is tucking him in, and this is where he's like, "Don't go out tonight. Like, you're not going anywhere, are you? Like, stay." And she's like, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "Oh, you're not going to the Welshes for drinks?" And she's like, "The Welsh?" Like, she doesn't even know who they are, it seems.
I also thought, and it might have just been the makeup in this scene, in this particular scene, she suddenly looked really old.
Yeah.
Like, there was that part.
I think they did change her makeup a bit because he's supposed to be much younger.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how when you're young, your parents look much, they look like adults.
Yeah.
And then when you get to adult, everyone looks like kids. It makes no sense.
But yeah, in this particular scene, I don't know if they just did her makeup different or whatever, but I looked at her and I was like, she looks really old. Why is she so old here? Because this whole time, the thing that had been odd to me was that they looked like they were the same age.
Oh, and to be fair, by this point, I have figured out they're dead. Let me be clear. I finally caught on a little bit before this scene. But yeah, he's trying to change the past now. He's trying to. So he can't sleep. I assume because he assumes that they are going to go out. But he walks into their room and they're asleep, and he asks if he can come. He's like, "I can't sleep. Can I come cuddle up with you?"
So this is the point where I actually clocked the pajamas not fitting right. Because up until this point, I hadn't even, like, the clothes change is whatever. But this point when he walks in, and these things are clearly like 3 sizes too small for him, and like he got like on a 3/4 shirt, and his pants are up to like the middle of his calves, and I'm like. Buddy, what you doing in those clothes?
Yeah.
That's not a good look, my man. And Andrew Scott's an okay looking dude. You worked real hard to make him look awkward as hell in those clothes.
He looks like a little kid. But he crawls into bed with mom and dad. They let him come sleep with them. Dad just kind of grunts and scoots over, let him in the middle. And him and mom catch up on what he's been up to since she died. And this is the first time they really address everything that happened, that she passed away in a car wreck, and he talks about, she's like, "Well, where'd you go live after we were gone?" He's like, "I went to live with this grandmother." And she's like, "Well, why not your father's grandmother? Why'd you go live with my grandmother?" And it's a super sad scene because he's like, "Well, she was too broken up." And the mom, in a bit of funniness, is like, "Oh yeah, lost her only son. I get that. But my mom, who lost her only daughter, seems totally okay."
Totally.
And then Adam says she wasn't.
She was not.
And I'm like, that one, just those 2 words, lets you know how hard of a life he probably had for those next. He was 12, so at least 6 years that he was living with his grandmother, and
that would be so fucking heartbreaking.
And well, imagine every time she looks at him, she thinks of her daughter who died. Yeah.
Well, and like she is grieving, and he is grieving,
and she has to take care of him,
and she has to
hide
take care
her
of
grief,
him,
which she obviously didn't do well enough. He didn't notice. Because how could you? You lost your child,
right?
It's an impossible task that this poor granny has been saddled with.
Yes, it's fucking like horrendous.
Yeah.
That was sad. That was very sad.
And then Adam kind of explains this alternate timeline that he has in his head where they lived and all the adventures they had as a family.
Oh my God.
They went to Disney World. It rained every day. They ended up fighting. And his mom's like, and this, if your theory is correct, that he is making it up in his head, his mom's kind of in this scene calling him out on that. She's like, well, you could have made that trip whatever you wanted to. Why did it rain?
And why did we fight?
Like, did we make up? He's like, it didn't matter because we were together. Like, in that timeline, we were together. Kids fight with their parents.
Yeah.
So he is trying to make a realistic timeline. He's not like, well, if they had lived, we never would have fought again.
I'd have been the best son in the world.
Yeah, mom and dad would have turned over a new leaf and accepted me for everything I was. No, he has a relatively realistic view of what it would have been like.
We would have fought because I was a 14-year-old shithead and you were my mother. And yeah, like that is... Because you can love your children and then also be very exasperated by the way they're acting.
Yes.
I do that every day.
Facts. But yeah, he basically she asks if he's okay, and he says no. And he starts crying, and his dad leans over and hugs him. He's like, "You are okay. You're gonna be okay." But then as if I wasn't confused enough, I'd finally separated the dad from Harry. The dad turns into Harry. This movie hates me. So yeah.
It hates Reno in particular.
Yes, Adam flips over. He's like, Harry, what are you doing here?
You're not supposed to be
And then
here.
he realizes that his parents are gone. And then he realizes Harry's gone, right? And he's alone in bed. Which is, whew. And I like this because this felt like Adam having trouble reconciling the child Adam from the adult Adam, and the two different worlds, like the world he lives in now and the world he lived in then, are like just butting heads. Like they can't work together. And when he tries to combine them by bringing Harry to meet his parents, it's a fucking train wreck.
So I wrote down here, before we get to that part,
Sure,
Adam is
sure.
a good example of why I don't want to take drugs. Like anything hardcore. I don't know what's buried up here.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go digging.
You don't ever wanna know what's up there.
What you gonna find out when you start digging. And like that whole, because when he comes out, he's talking about how it was a bad trip, basically. Like
He said, you were in the club screaming your parents' name.
yeah.
So I had to take you home. Like,
And I,
yeah,
like-
that checks.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because he's got trauma.
Yeah.
And you never know what's going to happen when you start doing drugs.
Oh, there is a scene right before that, though, where he's still jumping from scene to scene, where he's like in a train stalking Harry.
Yeah, that was weird too.
And I'm like, oh, do you not trust Harry? Do you think Harry's cheating on you? Because there was another scene in the club where Harry was talking to someone else.
Yeah,
and
he wasn't even making out. He was.
They were
just talking.
leaning close and talking, and Adam.
It's a fucking club,
and
my
Adam's
man.
walking in their direction, and then they
I
kind
don't
of
know how
disappear.
loud you aren't aware those things are,
Yeah.
but you do have to get close to people to hear them.
Yeah.
If he saw him making out, I could see getting a little upset.
But he's just leaning close and talking. And it was weird because the whole time Adam's trying to get to Harry in the club, other people are walking by and giving Adam the old, hey, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, Adam, you could be talking real close to somebody, too, if you wanted to. This club is, it reminds me of the clubs of my youth. This club's full of people waiting to hook up. It's good stuff.
I mean, do what you want.
But then he sees, this part, as far as scary goes, like, this was the only part that actually, like, freaked me out. Well, no, there's two scenes, but this was one of them. He looks across at the window, and there's young him reflected in the window, just screaming in the subway car. And that's when he wakes up, and it's like, wait, it's Sunday morning. How's it still Sunday morning? And that's when Harry tells him about the club
Because
trip.
he had dreamed that whole relationship bit and all of that
Yeah?
up until that point. So when he wakes up and
It's still Sunday
it's still
somehow.
Sunday somehow.
Yeah.
It's,
I went through a Christmas while we were doing this.
Yeah,
Like, I don't even know what season it is.
Yeah, so, and then he does. So I wrote down, up until this point, he's always gone to visit his parents by himself. Now he's dragging his boyfriend into his dream world, and I feel like this will end poorly.
Yes. Well, first he tells him the story of his parents. He was like, I was actually supposed to go with them, but they let me stay asleep in their bed. The cops show up at like midnight, tell me what happened. My dad died instantly. My mom lingered on for a few days, but I didn't get to go see her because she had been so like injured in like her face and stuff that they didn't want me to see her. Like she'd lost an eye, and
He went hunting for
he
that
went
eye.
hunting for it. Like the coping mechanisms that children or anyone has when someone dies. Like, I know this is not even close to the same thing, but I remember when my dog passed away, like, I insisted on, like, taking the shovel, like, right then. Like, dog had been cold, like, 3 minutes and, like, start digging a hole. Because I was like, I just have to get a process. I have to do a thing that requires absolutely no thinking of me, or I'm going to lose my shit completely. And so I'm sitting there shoveling dirt like a fucking madman in the backyard.
Yeah.
And so I do not judge Adam for going and looking for the eyeball, because the things our mind picks for us to do to try and like move past pain before we've actually dealt with it properly. Especially when you're fucking 12. Like,
Especially when you're fucking 12.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's how old my oldest daughter is. I don't even like that. There's no judgment there. That kid could have done whatever. He could have started writing daily diary entries about what he thinks his parents would have reacted to in every day. And that would have been a fine reaction because he's 12.
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
a child.
Yes.
I did think cutting for an eyeball was weird. But
it was weird, but when you put it in perspective, you're like, okay.
You do what you gotta do to get through this because...
And this is when I switched to Team Harry, and I'm like, maybe you should leave Adam alone. Maybe stay away from him for your own good.
Yeah.
Also, just a bit of advice. I don't think you should ever date people in your building. Like, how the fuck do you get away from them? Like, how the fuck? When you break up, and you inevitably will, because life is fleeting and nothing is permanent. Like, you are going to see them in the elevators. They're going to see you and give you stinky eyeballs when they see you with your new person. You're going to give them stinky eyes when you see them with their new person. You're going to have awkward elevator rides. Like, just don't date in your building. Just do yourself a favor. But yes, as Cecilia said, Adam's like, Harry, come with me. I can't tell you where, just trust me. And man, that is how you get murdered in a field.
It fucking is. Do not, the moment someone is like, one, you never go with anyone to a secondary location. Two,
I don't care how many nice nights in your apartment you've had.
The moment someone is like, I'm not going to tell you anything, I just need you to trust me. That's the moment a bitch gets tased. You do not just trust anybody ever.
Look over there.
Yeah, I'm right behind you.
And real trusting I am. But yeah, this is the second part that completely scared me. Like, they get back to the house, it's all dark. Adam is beating on the doors like a crazy person. And Harry doesn't know what's going on. He's like, whose house is this? And he's like, my house. He's like, well, who lives here now? And he's like, my parents. And at this point, Harry's like, I would like to go home now. Let's go home now. He is begging. Mm-hmm. He's begging Adam to take him home.
Harry has a very reasonable reaction to, my dead parents live in this house.
I want you to meet them. They're like, what? Are they in the basement? Did you...
Just me casually wondering if Adam is Norman Batesing this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, you got his mom stuffed in an armchair. Will I have to kiss her on the cheek when I meet her? Like, apparently the gay scene in this town is not good because, he
hangs out for longer than he should have.
Exactly. I've been like, you know what? I saw a lot of guys at that club. Adam, there are other less crazy fish in the sea. Adam and Harry both dragged this relationship on way longer than I would have. There were so many warning signs from both parties that I would have dipped like an hour into... Yeah, no.
I wouldn't have opened the door the second time. Actually, I wouldn't have opened the door the first time because who the fuck are you knocking on my door? Like,
at this late? Yeah, no, thank you. And then we get that the Adam faints. Harry runs off. Adam faints. But there is a scene of like a lady in the darkness. And he's like, Mom, why won't you let me in? He's beating on the door.
And that's when I was like, he's Norman Bates in this shit. He's got
at first I thought maybe that's not his mom. Maybe he just woke up the person that owns this house now. And he's getting ready to get arrested. But sure enough, he wakes up in the house. And it's interesting because now... it looks like people are getting ready to move. All the furniture's covered in those dust sheets. It's very bright. So, but his parents are there.
And they're talking. I think
Adam's
it's really
interesting. Why wouldn't you let me in?
Before he actually wakes up, you can hear them talking. And they're like, we have to stop him from doing this. He can't keep coming back here. This isn't good for him.
Yeah.
So, like, they're recognizing that, like...
this is not healthy for him.
I don't know if it's just because... Adam is finally coming to the point where he realizes that, like...
I think it's because there is actual ghost parents, and they are realizing that they are ruining his fucking life.
Aww.
I don't know why I like that better. And also, I feel like, as good of a writer as Adam is, he did not seem emotionally healthy enough to have got to this spot yet. Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit.
We can talk about that when we get to the very end.
Yeah. But yeah, his parents kind of aren't looking at him.
They're looking at each other and like doing that thing that people who've been together for a long time can do, where they have a conversation still talking, with their eyes
without moving their lips.
Me and my best friend can have full on like, we can have full on conversations just by moving our faces a little.
Yeah,
that's what the parents are doing in this scene.
Yeah, but meanwhile they are saying like, "I'm sorry, we couldn't let Harry see us." But we saw him. He looked cute. He looked like a nice guy.
Yeah.
Do you love him? Like, they're asking all the relationship questions about him.
They're being good parents.
Showing that both of them have become accepting of him as a gay man. But yeah, then they tell him, you can't come here anymore. And Adam says, it hasn't been long enough. And his mom's like, it never will be.
Yeah. We could do this until you die.
Either this spiritual realm thing or this fake thing you've made up is never going to replace the 20 years that we weren't around.
And it's also not real.
Yeah.
Either way, you can't show your boyfriend.
Yeah, that's true. Even if we are actually ghosts, you can't actually invite your boyfriend over for dinner. Like, we can't do that.
There's no way in which this will keep going.
Yeah.
Satisfactorily.
Yeah. It can only end badly.
Yeah. You will either be, if you think they're real ghosts, you will either be put in an insane asylum because no one else can see you and you're talking to ghosts.
Yeah.
Or
you will have a mental breakdown and be put in an insane asylum because people think you're talking to ghosts. It's kind of that old joke that like the atheists used to use when they were trying to score points on Christians. They'd be like, your God's kind of like an invisible, incorporeal dragon in the garage. And someone's like, can I see it? No. Can I feel it? No. Can it manipulate anything in the world? No. It's like, well, what's the difference between that and no dragon in your garage? Like, they're the same thing. His parents being spirits or figments of his imagination, in the end, it does not matter. Because in the end, he can't keep doing this.
If you want to be a sane person who gets to go have a relationship with Harry, you cannot keep coming back to this house to have a fake relationship with your parents.
No, that's bad. Did you see how Harry reacted?
Harry reacted like a sane person.
You broke a window, and Harry ran off. And it's funny because they ask him, "Are you boyfriend? Is he your boyfriend?" And he's like, "I don't know." It's like, I would guess after last night, nah. I would guess after last night, you're back on the market, would be my guess.
Which actually makes the next scene really weird because after they have this talk, he asks them to go to one more place with him.
Yeah.
And they go...
Well, his dad suggested. He's like, let's go to your favorite place next to Disney World. And cheaper, too. And they have a little father-son laugh. And it's some weird American diner in a mall. And just like...
I did not know why.
Did they mention this at some point before? It seems completely out of left field.
It does.
Maybe it's because Americans don't have health care. And maybe they're just cracking on us about these two ghost parents. Like, actually, in England, the health care is so good that even after...
They also don't establish a place for this to actually be happening, though.
It was... Yeah, the mall even seemed like it was a ghost mall. Like, there was no one else in it, and they're riding the escalator, and you see the sun shining. It was like Heaven's Mall. But yeah, I think it was just England making fun of us. Like, oh, our health care is so good that even after your parents are dead, they can come back and you can still have time with them.
Yep.
But yeah, they go to America Town.
But it is...
And
he can't say that he loves Harry, but he is still willing to let his parents go for this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because I don't think it's not just for Harry. It's also they have a point. Like, his life can't go this way. It can't work. This doesn't work. But yeah, they go.
He gets the family meal.
And the lady looks at him weird because I am assuming she cannot see that he's with two other people. Yeah. He lies to his mom and tells her that
she died quickly.
Which I like. That's a good lie. That's a very good lie. I wrote at this point, we should all be so lucky to have a psychotic break to chat with our dirty laundry. Like, I think that's something that would...
I
think that would help I'm being, I'm coming over your side in that line. I'm saying if it is a psychotic break, we should all be so lucky. Like... It
is nice that he wanted to comfort his parents.
Yeah. And then he gets to... Earlier, he mentions how his mom woke up once. And that neither his father nor he were there. And she must have been... He said confused, but I think he meant scared. Because she woke up and...
She was alone.
Her men weren't there. Yeah, her guys weren't there. And they reenact the scene now. Because his mother starts going blind. And she's like, I can't see you. And he takes her hand. He is reliving the scene at her deathbed that he couldn't do while she was alive. And she says, I hope you try and make things work with this Harry guy. I hope you make each other a bit happier.
He's got such sad eyes.
Yeah, he's got such sad eyes. Yeah. And I see. He's trying to relive his time with her at the end. And yeah, and then he says goodbye and his parents leave.
And then he gets food, which includes 3 milkshakes.
Yes, because it's the family plan. It's the family meal.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that he ate. Did he eat it all in honor of them, or did he take one sip of the check, throw down a 40, and jet out of there? But this is the part where it takes a fucking heart-wrenching turn.
So Adam goes back
to the apartment complex. Yeah.
And he goes to Harry's apartment for the first time that we've
never seen him go to Harry's.
They've always gone to Adam's apartment. And it's ominous. Yeah. I think the music even said ominous in my subtitles here.
Yeah. Yep.
And he gets into Harry's apartment, and it is a mess.
Alcohol and drugs all over the place.
All over the place.
Like somebody had a Bubba Bender.
And he makes a face because the smell is really bad. And then he opens the door and shuts the door. Yeah. Like, immediately.
And we know at this juncture that he found Harry.
And Harry is dead.
But what is revealed here, and what we didn't know, or I didn't until this point, is that much like in The Sixth Sense, Harry's been dead the whole time.
Yes. I wrote down here, I went into him opening this apartment door, hoping that Harry was real. Because at this point, I was like, well, did he make Harry up to let go of his parents? Because no one else has interacted with anybody. I don't know who's
real and who's not.
Who's real and who's not. Yeah. I should have been hoping Harry was alive because bitch is dead.
Yeah, you wrong wish. He was real, but you just missed him.
And he's been dead the whole time.
He's been dead a while, which is why he stinks.
Yeah. Well, and also the only real hint you get for that is that he's drinking the bottle of beer that was the same bottle he offered to Adam the first time he knocked on the door.
Yeah, that bottle is lying naked. And he takes his hand, and his hand's yucky, like it's been there a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, Adam's holding his hand for a bit, but then he walks out, and he hears a noise out in the hall, in the kitchen. And he walks out, and there's Harry, because, what? And Harry tells him, I was so scared and lonely that night when I came to your door.
I just didn't want to be alone.
I didn't want to be alone. And Adam's like, I was too scared to let you in. So they both were like fighting the fears that they had. Again, it's what I said at the beginning before I knew how poignant it would be. It was someone who's comfortable in their loneliness versus someone who can't stand it. Each one trying to overcome their fear.
Unfortunately for
Harry,
well, and unfortunately for Adam, by the time he was willing to try, Harry was already gone.
Yeah, Harry finished it that night. And we don't know if he just accidentally or purposely died.
Yeah.
But, the last scene is Adam curled up with Harry's ghost after they have a heart-to-heart.
Yeah, they have a conversation. And the thing that stuck out to me was, on top of Harry's been dead the whole time, there's a line where, because they're going back and forth, and Adam is saying, like, no, you're here. You're right here. You're fine.
Don't look in there.
Yeah. And he's like, I can taste it.
Yeah, Harry's like, I can smell it. I can taste it. It's in my throat. Like,
I'm dead.
I know what happened. You didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they're in the bed, and Adam is trying to comfort him. Yeah. And Harry's like, don't get involved in this again. Yeah. Basically, the ghost...
You guys say goodbye to me, too. Sorry.
The ghost
Sorry about your damn
figment of Adam's imagination, whichever one, is like, hey, don't do this to yourself.
Yeah. Just put on a song and say goodbye.
Yeah.
Like, I can't stand the silence. Again, Harry, I can't stand how silent it is in here. Put something on. And he puts on a song by Frankie Goes to Hollywood, which is, again, odd choice. And he says 2 of the lines about it. Basically, I won't let the hooked horror, I won't let the vampires get you.
Which is funny because that's what Harry says when he opens the door. There's a vampire at your door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, in full circle. It kind of zooms out on them spooning. And we assume, I like to assume, that Adam says goodbye to Harry. And between his mom and dad and Harry, those 3 ghosts help him carry on with his life in a more healthy way and maybe not be such a sad little shut-in guy.
So, I assume the opposite, and that he stays in that bed
Till he dies too.
till he dies too.
Well,
And the lighting is weird, and like the whole thing just has
and it
this
zooms
real
out, so he's
odd-
like a star in the solar system.
Yeah.
It's almost like the baby appearing at the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's just like, and now space for the reasons, because we're all specks in this universe. And
it does. The lighting is really funny because it's got this like.
It's blue at first,
And then it's red orange,
Yeah.
and then the blue and the red orange are clashing, and they're out of sync, whatever it is. And then it just keeps zooming out until we're galaxies or whatever.
Turns out what actually happened is Adam slept through that fire alarm, and it was an actual fire, and they all burned up in the fire, and that's why it's a star when you zoom out far enough.
I did write down here, I thought I was in a rom-com for a hot minute there.
Right?
But then with all the living ghosts and things, it was a bit tragic. It was not a rom-com.
Yes,
It was
yes.
not, it wasn't a
I'm not sure
horror
I'd call it a
movie.
horror movie, but definitely a supernatural movie in the best ways. The kind that make you think and the kind that make you sad. Those are the ones I like.
Yeah, it's not a horror movie in the slasher murder sense, but
Yeah.
it was definitely hard to watch.
Yeah, definitely supernatural and horrible things happen in it.
Yeah,
So for this April edition of Judgmental Horror Junkies, that will have to tide you over.
I need to be more careful when I put things into search bars on Google. Apparently.
No, it's fine. It just so happens that with the day that this will be released, it might just work out.
Hey.
But in a month's time, we are going to reconvene here. That is because we're going to be discussing Green Room, which is about a band that ends up... I may be butchering this. This is my remembrance of the plot from a long time ago. You'll have to watch it yourself and come back next month to get the full story. But I believe it's a punk band that ends up showing up at a skinhead bar. And Patrick Stewart's in it. And if you need to know more than that, you are
You
not...
never need to know more than Patrick Stewart's
Exactly.
in
You
it.
should not be listening to this podcast. But that is a month
Teaser.
from now. Till now, I hope you all have a great time. And I hope you get some sort of closure with whatever ghost are currently...
Closure's not real.
Whatever skeletons
live
are
with
currently in your closet.
Learn to live with your sadness.
Well... I still hope you get closure. Look,
Well, you know what?
it doesn't have to be
you
real
know
to
what?
be something I hope you get.
You know what? I guess on the other end of that, if you need closure, make it up yourself.
That's
it works
true.
just as well.
Yes, if you need some to snort some pills and to
Well, I am not suggesting drug use.
what? I think it really helped him. I think it really opened his mind.
I just explained to you the
Well, no.
reasons why.
But there's also listeners that might relate more than to me who think that maybe
if
drugs
you are
will
the
help
type
you.
of person who needs closure, I am going to say that the drugs will not help you.
And-
The drugs will do what they did to Adam and fuck your head up and make you think you had a relationship that lasted 3 months that didn't even last 6 hours.
And I'm going to say, let the drugs be your closure. We'll see you next month, everybody.
Bye.